Hey guys, so good news and bad news. We'll do the bad news first. The game that I was playing as a fascist United States, not very long after I took all of the British Isles, I went to save it, and because Hearts of Iron is Hearts of Iron, it crashed and corrupted the save file. And because I was an idiot, I was saving it in only one slot, so whoops. And because I don't want to play through 6 years as the United States not doing really anything, because it takes the US 6 years to do anything of note. Instead, I've started a new game, and I decided to play a nation that's going to end up in conflict a lot sooner rather than later, so I'm playing as Japan. And and the whole Marco Polo Bridge incident just happened, and just like that, I'm at war with China. So, I was actually not planning on a war with China this early, because I'm an idiot and I forgot about history and how quickly these nations ended up at war with each other. So, whoops. But I also did something else. Japan is in a really interesting situation in early 1936, which is when this game starts. At about that point in time, Japan suffered several really big, almost successful coups that were trying to take apart the imperial government. And because Japan has a history of not actually being a unified nation, not that long in the past, Japan was still the several different clans that were at war with each other, and they had the shogunate, and they had that massive war where the imperial Japan took over and defeated the shogunate, and all that crazy stuff. So Japan, at this point in history, actually did not have a very unified government, and they did not have a very unified culture or very unified political system, and they actually did a really great job of unifying and becoming a very dedicated nationalist empire over the course of the next 4 years before World War II started to kick off. I, on the other hand, was not paying attention, and I put out absolutely no effort whatsoever to unify the political system. And as a result, a lot of really crazy shit started happening. There were several more coup attempts than there actually were, because I didn't put out any effort to actually shut them down, and the Japan basically ended up with a bunch of really bizarre political parties taking over in various areas. And all of a sudden, there was a communist coup, and they took over the government. So in the middle of my military and industrial buildup, I ended up all of a sudden becoming communist, and that led to a really interesting situation, and Russia basically offered Japan to join the Comintern. And as you can see by Japan being in Cyrillic letters and written in red, I accepted. So Japan is now a Comintern nation allied with the Soviet Union in early 1937. Now, because I'm partially allied with the Soviet Union, I'm not actually fully allied with the Soviet Union, that leads to some really interesting situations. It means I can end up at war with nations like China, which I just did. So I am now a Comintern nation, and I'm at war with China, but Soviet Union and Mongolia and the Herbaderbaderp Republic down here have not actually ended up at war with China yet. And I don't think I can call both of them, or I can call all three of them into the conflict, and I'm pretty sure they'd accept. But I'm not really sure I want to do that. I'm pretty sure I want to try and take China basically as Japan did on its own. And the really cool thing about being allied with Russia is Japan, massive industry, and I dumped everything into building the industry even larger than it was. I now have almost the same industrial capacity as the United States. I'm not joking at all. Unfortunately, I have none of the material or the resource production the United States does, which means, unlike the United States, that running a massive industry still doesn't manage to run itself out of resources. Japan actually not in a very good resource situation. Until I ended up allied with Russia. Russia, massive industrial base, although their industrial base at this point in time is actually pretty small. It's about half the size of Germany's, but unlike Germany, unlike Japan, unlike Italy, Russia, massive resource wealth. And being a Comintern nation, they actually are very, very willing to basically give the majority of it away. So I have a huge amount of resources just pouring in across the Trans-Siberian Highway, down into Korea, which is very firmly under my control at the moment, and just through one sea province and into Japan, which means several things. Rather than trying to defend a massive supply chain from Germany, and Germany itself doesn't have that many resources to give away to Japan if Japan ends up in the Axis. So rather than trying to defend this massive supply chain that goes all the way past all of this British-controlled territory to Japan, instead, I don't have to defend anything, no matter who I end up at war with, because all of the resources are being trucked across Russia, down through this Fort province, down through Korea, and I only have to defend, because Japan is an island nation, you will always have to defend yourself from submarines. Luckily, all of it's coming through these two sea provinces right here. So I only have to defend two sea provinces to stop the majority of my supplies. As you can see, over 200 units of energy just getting dumped into Japan from Russia for almost no money whatsoever. So I'm able to make a massive amount of money from selling all my crap to other people. And Russia's asking for almost nothing in return. It's amazing. It actually makes me want to be communist almost, seeing how nice the Soviet Union's being to me right now. So the downside is I'm not going to be able to conquer Mongolia because they're allied with me. The good news is I'm going to be able to conquer all of China pretty much unopposed, other than China, which isn't much opposition. No offense to China, but I mean seriously, massive nation, tiny army. It really isn't going to be well for them. And because I'm not allied with the Allies, if Japan allies with the Allies, you can't invade Burma at all. You can't invade Siam very easily. If China ends up joining the Allies, it forces you to be neutral with them in the middle of the war, making you give up all the territory you've captured. It's really terrible. So Japan, as an allied member, really isn't a fun game to play. As the Axis, it's fun at first until the Axis lose and you end up basically fighting the entire world. That kind of sucks. As it stands, being allied with Russia, this is actually going to get extremely interesting. Mainly because, while I don't want to drag the Soviet Union into the war now, I will drag them into the war eventually. Germany is going to end up allying with Italy and taking the majority of Central Europe. They're then going to declare war on the Soviet Union like they always do. But now several really interesting things are going to change. The first one is, I am Japan, which means I get to control if Japan decides to attack the United States or not. And because I'm not an idiot, I'm not going to be doing it. So I'm not going to be attacking the United States in 1991. I'm not going to be attacking the United States in, I don't know why I said 91. I'm apparently an idiot. 41. I'm not going to be attacking them in 42. Probably not going to be attacking them in 43. And if the United States never gets attacked, it's actually really, really difficult for them to end up joining any faction because their neutrality is so high. So the United States is probably going to end up being irrelevant for the majority of this war, which is great because that means the Allies aren't going to be anywhere near as powerful as they usually are, even though the United States is going to continue trading with the rest of the Allies. Which means even if I end up taking the majority of the UK's land over here, their material wealth is still going to be massive from all the crap that they're getting given by the US. The other good news, and this is really good news, is the fact that I'm probably going to end up starting the Cold War well before World War II actually ends. And that's probably going to happen about the time around early 1940s, the mid-1940s, when China ends up joining the Allies. They might not join the Allies, but they're probably going to join the Allies, and when they do, because I'm the Comintern, and I'm at war with China already, that's going to end up dragging Russia into a war with the Allies, probably while Germany's in the middle of invading Russia. That's going to get really interesting, to the extent where I might actually have to send troops halfway around the world. I'm not going to be able to get through there, but luckily, well, I could end up invading Iraq, and then end up pumping supplies up through Iraq into Russia. Or I can just send my soldiers across the Trans-Siberian Highway. It's going to take them half a year, if not more. But I can do it, and then I'm going to end up getting my troops and helping Russia out on the front against the Axis. This is all pretty far in the distant future. In the next year or two, I'm pretty much just going to be focusing on China. There's no way in hell that China's going to join the Allies before 1940. which means I have a good 2.5 years, maybe even 3 years of fighting China just on my own. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on for the short term. And I haven't been talking for too long, have I? Whatever, we'll just keep going. So my battle plan against China, it's a lot more conservative than the actual plan the Japanese had. I actually have a pretty small army. I only have one army group over here. Well, not even an army group, I just have one army over here. And I have about half an army of Marines in mainland Japan. Unfortunately, I don't have any landing craft yet because I was not planning on being at war with China yet because I forgot about the whole Marco Polo Bridge incident, so whoops. So I don't actually have any way to do an amphibious invasion, but I did train up 6, I believe 7 total divisions of airborne infantry, which is about a corps and a half, although airborne infantry is about half as strong as normal infantry. The good news is I can airdrop them into China right now, this very moment, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to bring them all in. I'm going to end up dropping a division in each of these provinces that the Chinese have very kindly put pillboxes and built a fortress in. So I'm going to then be manning these Chinese fortresses immediately, and there's, as you can see, no garrisons in any of them. So I'm just going to take them immediately. I'm then going to drop at least 2 on this province, and there's going to be a big battle with my airborne troops as they land in and try and take that province out. Remember that militia unit? I'm then going to be at the same time attacking Shanghai from every direction, and I very well could end up conquering Shanghai within about a week, maybe even less of the war breaking out. At which point I can then use all of my civilian shipping to end up shipping in all of my half army of Marines, which I'm then going to use that half army of Marines to garrison this area. I'm just going to I only need to hold these 2 provinces. They can't actually attack across there, so these are the only 2 provinces we need to hold, and they have pillboxes and fortresses in them, so thank you, China, for building those for me. So while my Marines are holding that down, I'm then going to be collecting up all of my airborne infantry in this airport and launching another airborne invasion. Going to take these 2 provinces, hold them, quickly surround and siege this province. At that point, these guys are going to be almost immediately just holding the line right there. I'm not going to continue the attack at all. It's going to cost me too many men, and I don't have enough this early yet. But then I'm going to be taking 2, maybe 3 of the 4 corps here. Going to be shipping them all around here. I'm then going to be concentrating as many forces as I can here without weakening either of these 2 defensive lines. And they're then going to be breaking out through the plains here. I'm going to try and push the Chinese back behind these rivers, and then just set up a massive front along these rivers. And then I could also, if I have enough troops, press in and take this area. And again, I'm going to then, my early goal is to keep the front as narrow as possible, so it's pretty much not possible at all for the Chinese to overwhelm me. Then I'm going to try and extend the front as long as I possibly can to get the Chinese to spread out as much as they can, at which point my then 1-to-1, the fact that my troops are much better trained and much better equipped, I should then be able to slaughter them in mass. And I should be able to get the Chinese to have absolutely massive casualties. And because I'm not doing a super aggressive offensive push, instead I'm just holding defensive lines behind rivers, they're going to be suffering the attacking over a river penalty. I'm not. And I should be able to put a massive amount of casualties on the Chinese while taking very few of my own. And I should be able to drain away China's massive manpower reserves without screwing over Japan's not particularly impressive manpower reserves. Even less than the United States, believe it or not. Yeah, Japan, massive army, but they had no reinforcements for it whatsoever. I instead have a rather small army with quite a few reinforcements, but I'd rather not use any of them yet. I'd rather keep everyone alive as long as I can. That was Japan's really big major failing. But after that, after I get this big long front, I stretch out their forces spread across all of it. Somewhere along that front they're going to have a weakness. They don't have enough troops to be strong everywhere, while I do have enough troops to be strong everywhere. I can then focus one of my corps, get a breakthrough, and then wrap around behind the Chinese troops and basically just envelop them and push them back against my infantry who are still just holding the line. And cut off and just massacre them. and hopefully that's going to be enough. So basically my goal, unlike the actual Japanese plan, which was basically a massive blitzkrieg across most of northern China, which ended up killing off almost all of their troops, leaving them almost nothing to defend themselves when the Allies ended up at war with them. Instead of doing that, I'm going to try and be much more surgical, much smaller scale, and much more efficient casualty exchanges to try and keep as many of my troops alive as long as physically possible. And only then am I going to actually go and try and conquer China. I'm not going to try and take all of China while China has this massive militia army. I'm going to kill them all off first, and then I'm going to take it all. And then once I take all of China, we should then start focusing on the rest of it. And it's not going to be until Germany takes out France that I'm going to be able to take Vietnam anyway. So we'll deal with our whole... We're starting off small. We're starting off really small, but I see myself by the late 1940s, early 1941, I expect to hold pretty much all of China. And then we can end up at war with the Allies, take Burma, maybe even get into India. And then just lock down the Pacific as much as we can and go from there. And very, very key to my strategy is not dragging the United States into the war until the last possible moment. Because I have a massive amount of resources from Russia. Who's against Russia? You against Russia. Who's you are? Giving me all kinds of resources. Oh, it's fantastic. I'm not actually going to need to rush my military strategy. And because I'm not going to be taking massive casualties, hopefully, I'm not going to have to rush my military strategy there either. And I should be able to be a lot slower and a lot more efficient. And not burn my entire economy out. We'll see. We'll see. The fact that I have no naval invasion capability right now does make me kind of sad. But yeah, so the extremely long grinding war with China shall begin next video, so I'll see you guys in that video, and I hope you enjoy my world conquest attempt as a communist democratic Japan. Oh, I didn't even mention that, did I? Yeah, I ended up with a communist coup taking over Japan. Not that long after that, I ended up with an imperial coup, putting Emperor Hero, whatever, back in charge. But the political party that the majority of the Japanese people are supporting is the Market Liberal Party, which is basically the American equivalent of our Progressive Party, which doesn't exist anymore. But it used to be the Progressive Party, the Republican Party, and the Democrat Party, but the Progressives, they kind of disappeared. But yeah, I basically have a Democratic Party in control of Japan's Senate, but I'm in an empire with absolute authority given to the Emperor. So, and I'm allied with the Communists. Yeah, I don't know how long this is going to last before. The fact that I actually am suffering some pretty major fractured government penalties, and can you believe it? I wonder why. I'm an empire with a Democratic Party in charge of the people. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. But hopefully that doesn't screw everything up. We'll see though. Either way, I am pretty much permanently allied with Russia at this point. You can't break a pact like that. Anyway, this video is over. So this is going to be interesting. I'm sorry, China. It's nothing against you. I just want to conquer the world, and you're the best place to start right now. So I'll see you guys next time. Oh, this is going to be bloody.